and I'm mainly excited about what happens to Maxx C and Master Duel, same as in the OCG. Like, it went to 2 in the OCG after they got the Charmies. That is what I'm most anxiously waiting for when it comes to Master Duel. We just got a huge new Forbidden and Limited List update for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, including everyone's favorite cockroach, Maxx C. I'm here today to talk about these changes and what they mean for the future of the game. Before we hop in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. Without further ado, let's begin. All right, here we are. This is not going to be a blind reaction. I'm not live today, so I'm recording this one off stream, but we've got all the changes listed here today. We'll go through them one by one, discuss the individual cards a little bit, and then also talk about what I think about these decks moving forward. First off, we've got a couple of floodgates here on the list to be forbidden and to be limited, which is something I personally really like to see. Of course, when I say floodgates, I mean these kind of cards that you just activate and they don't let your opponent properly play Yu-Gi-Oh! I am a big fan of these cards being forbidden. Specifically, Secret Village is a card that's been popping up a decent amount recently in different like pendulum brews, where people would just make any random card that could search a field spell, like Ancient Fairy Dragon, for example. You would just search Secret Village at the end of your combo, activate it, your opponent wouldn't be able to activate any spell cards, which would basically make it impossible to beat your board. Summon Limit, a card that's seen a lot of usage in all kinds of stun decks, and also Voiceless Voice doesn't let your opponent summon more than twice, which basically means you're not really playing the game. So glad to see these cards gone. Anti-Spell Fragrance, this is a card that I see a lot in also just tournaments, you know, best of one tournaments. Anti-Spell Fragrance is a very popular card there as well, and in general has been seeing an increase in play due to Tenpai sending people first. So I'm also a big fan of them hitting Anti-Spell just in general. Not much to say other than I'm not a big fan of floodgates, so I'm happy to see them go onto the list even further. Cards to be semi-limited, here are some of the heavy hitters on this list and probably the things we're going to talk about the most. I'm actually going to save the Maxx C discussion to the end. I want to go over all these changes and then talk about Maxx C, because I do think this is the biggest change on this list. Let's first talk about how they have touched individual decks. Sangan Kaiman going to 2 is something that is definitely necessary. Even though they have hit Tenpai fairly hard with the last update, I was actually surprised to see how powerful the deck still was. But looking back, maybe it's not as surprising because it's a blind second deck, so it's just received 6 new Molcharmy cards to replace the consistency that they've lost from Sangan Summoning and Chundra going to 1. So the deck actually arguably didn't even get much worse from the recent update. You know, Tenpai is just one of those decks that, like, yeah, it's cool that we've got to go second deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, and it's actually viable, but at the same time, playing against Tenpai can often feel not so fun. People are still gonna play Tenpai is my personal prediction. However, Kaiman is one of the most powerful cards in the deck that is also the hardest to play around. So I'm very happy to see it go to 2. I hope it's enough to make people stop playing Tenpai. I'm not entirely sure it is though. Honestly, this is something they might have to end up putting to 1 at some point in the future, but I'm happy to see it here anyways. Nightmare Throne going to 2 is interesting. I haven't seen all too much Yubel recently, but it did get a slight boost with the introduction of Varudras to the game, so I am honestly not against hitting Nightmare Throne. Yubel is still a very, very powerful deck. It definitely deserves a hit. That is to say that in recent tournaments, specifically the Challenger Cups that I've hosted, Yubel didn't do super well. Instead, the combo deck that did a lot better was Snake Eye Fire King, and I'm noticing that there are not really any Snake Eye Fire King hits on this list, so I do think that is something that might come back to bite us here in the next couple of weeks, where like the Snake Eye Fire King deck I think deserves another hit, and it might just come back to, it's not going to dominate the game or anything like that, but like I do think the Snake Eye cards should be looked at some point in the future. But hey, I'm not upset about them hitting Nightmare Throne here. It's definitely a good decision. Let's quickly talk about some of these unlimits. First off, we've got completely unlimited Morphing Jar and Cyber Jar, which is very funny. They've both been unbanned in both TCG and OCG, so I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. It could be a fun thing to mess around with. However, I don't think it's going to be anything super major to worry about. Then we've got Celestial here, enabling the DPE package again with Verte, you know, still legal in Master Duel. You can now go ahead and send Celestial again and have that little bit of a grind game follow-up aspect to draw 2 cards. I personally think that that's a good decision. I don't think Celestial deserves to be forbidden. I don't think Verte into DPE is a problematic play pattern in 2025 Yu-Gi-Oh! I have my doubts that Celestial being legal was the big thing that stopped people from playing DPE, but I mean, we'll see, honestly. And then we've got 3 hits here that I would categorize as just branded unlimits. We've got Aluber and Branded Opening, both 2/3, which is massive for Branded's consistency. And we've also got Bestial Serenir, which is also a slight buff to decks that I really like Dragon Link and Bestial Dragons, which I think is good. I really like seeing Serenir. The branded unlimits, I have mixed feelings about, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have anything against branded in particular. I don't mind the deck at all. I don't like the fact that Sanctifier is still legal and that the deck can still lock people out. With Gimmick Puppet Nightmare being banned, you have to go for other options, but I honestly still think there's really good options. I'm seeing people play the DDD King Armageddon, whatever it's called. I think it's Requiem. Someone sent Archlord Christia against me yesterday when I played Master Duel, and that's before these branded buffs. So I'm here for branded buffs, but if you could take away the floodgate from that deck, I'd be here for them a lot more. I'm honestly a little disappointed that they decided to hit branded on the consistency side rather than the floodgate side. So I'm hoping that with these cards coming back and people start playing branded again, or a lot more now, I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping that we will just get rid of Sanctifier at some point in the future. All right, and those are the changes. Overall, I think this is a good ban list because everything here is, I think, moving in the right direction. Like the floodgates should be on the list, Yugioh should be hit, Tenpai should be hit, the decks that they're buffing and the cards they're unlimiting are all things that I'm fine with being unlimited. And here's the big elephant in the room, right? Maxx C going to 2 is something that I don't think is all too surprising because it is something that has also happened in the OCG after they've released Molcharmy Perulia and Molcharmy Fuvolos. Maxx C is a toxic card. Maxx C is way too powerful in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, so it should be on the ban list. In my opinion, it should be banned like it is in the TCG. There's a couple of things you need to realize. The Molcharmies do not just replace Maxx C. They are not the same card quality. Specifically, Perulia is much harder to play in a best of one environment where you're trying to go first and that card is just going to be a dead card in your hand going first. The same is true for Fuvolos, but that card has higher payoff when you're going second. The impact of the Molcharmies outside of specifically Tenpai have been fairly limited, I would say. Like, I've seen a lot of decks use them and then start to drop them again because they realize, like, especially Perulia just doesn't do that much when you're playing a deck that wants to go first. What this means is, in a world where so many broken combos and so many broken endboard pieces still exist, like Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess, like Baron the Fleur, I think if they want to get rid of Maxx C completely, which I highly think they should, but then they also need to tone down the power level of the endboards in general. This is something that I think it goes hand in hand. If you want to get rid of Maxx C, you got to tone down some of these combo decks. I think that would be a very healthy direction for Yu-Gi-Oh to take because they didn't really hit any combo pieces on this ban list. That's a little dangerous and that's scary. The funny thing about this whole Maxx C debate, whenever it's being held, is like you have the one side which are like, we need Maxx C because the combo decks are just so out of hand in Yu-Gi-Oh, and the other side is like, well, Maxx C just beats every deck and is way too powerful and shouldn't exist. I think both sides of the argument have a good point here. Like, yes, Maxx C is an absolutely toxic card, but combo decks are also out of hand. So I'm saying, like, why don't we tackle both issues? And so while this Forbidden and Limited list, it tackles one of those issues, which is Maxx C being a toxic card, it doesn't tackle the other issue at all. So that is something that moving forward, I would like to see the game do for both OCG and Master Duel, is hit some of those very generic endboard pieces, maybe hit some of the more powerful combo decks specifically, and then also phase out Maxx C. We do have the Molcharmies. If worst comes to worst and you're really scared of going second against certain combo decks, you can main deck Molcharmies and they will help with that at the cost of being bad when you go first. But Maxx C is an outdated card. Maybe it was fine when it was designed in 2011, but it's not fine anymore in modern Yu-Gi-Oh. People have been asking for this card to be hit for years, so I'm glad it's happening. I do think it's got some implications though, and they should get rid of some of these powerful endboard pieces alongside it. Overall, I would give this list a solid 7.5 out of 10, simply because I'm happy with a lot of the things that have changed here, but I am aware that there are things that are missing on this, in my opinion. There's definitely stuff that needs to happen in upcoming ban lists to make the game even better. I think for now, we're still going to see Tenpai, we're still going to see Snake Eye Fire King, and we are going to see a return of Branded. I think those are probably going to be the top 3 decks for ladder moving forward. Let me know, what would you rate this ban list out of 10, and what deck are you going to play now in Master Duel once this ban list goes into effect? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.